Hey guys, welcome back to MFO. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Luke Clausen put out a video earlier in the week indicating that he's going over to the NPFL. Coincidentally, so did Andy Morgan. So those are two pretty big names that are joining a widening group that are going to the NPFL. The thing that I want to talk about is the fact that Luke mentioned that he attempted to use his classic exemption status. He's a Bassmaster Classic winner, and he attempted to move from the BPT over to the elites. And when he was asked about using his exemption status for winning the Classic, B.A.S.S told him that they were no longer using those exemptions for anglers that weren't already in the elites. We're going to talk about what they said, or at least what Luke is saying they said, and we're going to kind of dig into that a little deeper. It doesn't sound exactly like this is a rule that is written down and like ironclad. We'll get into it when we get back. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. So, like I was saying, Luke Clausen, this is again, according to his video, he indicated that he had contacted B.A.S.S, said, hey, listen, I'm a former Classic winner, and I'd like to move from MLF to the elites and fish the elites this year. And according to Luke in the video that he did, B.A.S.S said, no, you got it wrong. We're changing the rule that we had about exemption status. Angler of the Year and Classic winners, those guys could get in, without going through the Bass Opens. But now, according to B.A.S.S, they're saying, hey, you know what? We're doing it differently now. Starting this year, if you're outside the organization, you can't get in by using that status any longer. If you're in, say you're a Gerald Swindle and you didn't qualify, you can use one of your exemption status to stay in. I believe it was Rick Clunn did this for several years. Rick Clunn, I think, had won 4 Classics, right? Well, he had 4 exemptions to be able to stay in even if he was below the cut line. And I'm pretty sure he's used all 4 of those, if I have those numbers correctly. But the point is that B.A.S.S is now saying if you're outside, you can't use that to get in. And so Luke Clausen kind of told us that, well, if I can't get in, then, I guess my other option is to go to the NPFL. The NPFL is looking like, there's a lot of guys who are looking like, hey, if I'm just going to go and have fun and fish the way I came up fishing, the NPFL is the place to go. More importantly, though, what is B.A.S.S doing? And is this rule like, hey, we really thought about this, and then Luke came along and we had to clarify the rule for Luke? Or did Luke come along and then we said, how are we going to answer him? And let's remember that Luke, and again, this is not to disparage Luke in any way, but Luke left B.A.S.S twice. I mean, he won a Classic and the very next year left B.A.S.S to go fish FLW, and then came back. And when FLW got bought out by Major League Fishing, he left again. So, and again, I don't know anything. I'm just putting pieces together and going, there's potential that there's other reasons that the answer is no in this particular case. Because to my knowledge, that isn't written anywhere that I'm aware of. And you're telling me that if KVD called and said, you know what, I changed my mind, I'd like to come over to the elites and use one of my exemptions, they would turn him down. I don't know that they would do that. And I think it's kind of interesting that they get to change in this, we're going to change it this year. We're going to say that we changed the rule. Doesn't mean that next year when KVD asks, they can't change the rule back. But that's kind of the system of rules. We make rules to meet the certain circumstance. But then if a circumstance changes, we change the rules. I don't know. And again, guys, this is just me kind of spitballing. I'm curious as to what you think. I'm not saying they can't do it. They can do it if they want. It's their company. And again, they can make the rules today and change them tomorrow. But you've got a large group of people that are trying to work within the rules. So that's number one. Number two, you've got social media nowadays where Luke can get on and say, I'm just telling you, this is what they told me. So B.A.S.S can't have a conversation with an angler and say, well, we're going to tell him this, but that's not really what's going on. Because that conversation is going to get out there. And then B.A.S.S ends up getting, or any organization, ends up getting caught with what they told that individual. So you can't really get away with that if you're going to rely on or say that you're relying on a rule when really you're just making a decision. We don't want you to come, or whatever the situation is. And again, I'm not insinuating any of those things are happening. I'm just looking at it from an outsider's perspective and going, why you're saying this is a rule, but I could pretty much guarantee that that rule wouldn't exist if certain anglers were wanting to get in there. I'm like I said, I'm curious as to what you guys think about this. Is this just another example of B.A.S.S and their kind of, I'm going to call it inept management style? Is this a not very well thought out answer to a problem, or is it just a rule and that's unfortunate for Luke and he's going to have to go somewhere else? Curious as to what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section. Hit that subscribe button, that hype button. We appreciate you tuning in. Have a great weekend, and we will see you again on Monday for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.